Can you all see my screen? Can everybody see my screen right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, so in this manner, we can get higher order derivatives also if they exist. Okay. Now, for example, suppose the vector capital R dependent on the variable u is the position vector small r. Okay, we all know the position vector of a particle in space given by x, y, and z coordinates. So this depends on some parameter u. We still don't know what u is. Please mute your microphones. So we can therefore write r, the small r of u, is equal to x, y, xi cap plus yj cap plus zk cap, where each of the components x, y, and z are also dependent on the same parameter u, right? That is why r is dependent on u. So this is the vector that we are talking about. So this is the vector r that I have drawn in the Cartesian coordinate system given by the vector xi cap plus yj cap plus zk cap. Okay. So when you change the parameter u by a certain amount delta u, which is infinitesimally small, this is the new position of the vector r. So we have r at u and r at u plus delta u. Okay. And therefore, this vector joining the tips of the two vectors ru and ru plus delta u is the vector delta r. So as u changes, the terminal point of ru will describe a space curve which has the parametric equations x equal to xu, y equal to yu, and z equal to zu. Okay. So this is the curve that the vector r traces as it changes to the vector r at u plus delta u. Have you understood? So as the parameter u changes by an amount delta u, the vector r changes. It is not necessary that it will always go straight from this position to this position. It may take a curve, which in some special case may also be a straight line, because you know that a straight line is a special case of a curve. So it may trace a curve like this to reach this new position. All right. And that curve is given by this equation, x equal to x of u, y equal to y of u, z equal to z of u. Then delta r delta u is equal to r at u plus delta u minus r at u divided by delta u. Okay. So this vector delta r by delta u is a vector in the direction of delta r. Okay. Can someone tell me that if delta r tends to 0, then what is the direction of dr du? You must have done this in your applied mathematics class. What is the direction of dr du if delta u tends to 0? The direction is that of the tangent to the space curve at the position x, y, z. So as you can see that this is the direction. Okay. So as delta r tends to 0, that is delta u tends to 0. So these two vectors will come closer and closer, and finally this delta r direction will be in the direction of the tangent to the space curve at the position x, y, z. Okay. So this is the significance of taking the derivative of the position vector. Okay. So dr du is equal to dx du I cap plus dy du j cap plus dz du k cap. Now from this you can quickly understand that if the parameter u is t, that is time, okay, then this dr du is dr dt is equal to v, that is velocity, And you can take higher derivatives, dv dt, that is d2r dt2, which will give you acceleration, and so on and so forth. So the term u that we were vaguely using so long now gets a meaning when I give you an example that you might, under some special circumstances, be the time variable. And if u is the time variable, then the derivative of the position vector with respect to it will give us the velocity. The second derivative will give us the acceleration, and so on. Okay, so this is the actual meaning of differentiating a vector with respect to a certain parameter on which it depends. Okay. Now, next, what we'll go to is, I don't know if we have done this before, it is called partial derivative of vectors. Okay. So long, if the vector depended on u, then we were taking the derivative, the normal ordinary derivative with respect to u. Now, suppose vector depends on the three space coordinates x, y, and z. Okay. So how do we define the partial derivative of such a vector? This is how we define the partial derivative. So del A del x is equal to limit delta x tends to 0, a of x plus delta x yz minus a of x yz divided by delta x. So what are we doing? We are taking the derivative with respect to x and keeping yz as constant. So when we are taking the partial derivative of a with respect to x, we differentiate a only with respect to x and treat y and z like constants. When we differentiate with respect to y, we take the derivative only with respect to y and treat x and z like constant. When we take the derivative with respect to z, we treat x and y as constants. How will you understand whether you are taking the partial derivative or the ordinary derivative? By the symbol del, by the way you write d. In ordinary derivative, we write simply d, right? dr dt, dv dt. When you curve the d like this is called script d, or sometimes it is also called del. We say del a del x, and then you mean it is the partial derivative. We no longer call it d. When we pronounce, we say del, and we write, when we write it like a script d, that is a curve like this, small d, and we say del a del x equal to this. So it means we are taking the partial derivative and not the ordinary derivative. We'll quickly understand what I'm talking about if you do an example. Okay. So suppose we have a vector which looks like this. It's a function of x, y, and z, and it looks like this: x square y z square I cap plus x y cube z j cap minus x to the power 4 y z k cap. Okay. So can someone tell me what is the value of del a del x? What is the value of del a del x? Can someone quickly calculate and tell me? Is someone trying? Is someone trying out? Is someone trying the sum? Please unmute and tell me. So many people in the class, no one is trying out the sum. then I'll give you the answer if no one is trying. So del A del X is this. You have differentiated with respect to X only. Okay, keeping Y and Z constant. So you get 2xyz square I cap plus y cube z j cap minus 4x cube yz k cap. Similarly, del A del Y, you will differentiate only with respect to Y, treating X and Z as constant. So you get x square z square I cap plus 3xy square z j cap minus x to the power 4 z k cap. And del A del Z is equal to 2x square yz I cap plus xy cube j cap plus x to the power 4y k cap. All right. So this is how you do partial derivatives. Now a little bit more information about partial derivatives. You can define the higher derivatives in terms of partial differentiation like this. For example, del 2a del x2 will be del del x of del A del x. So in the previous example, you found out del A del x. You can similarly now find out del 2a del x2. Del 3a del x3. You can similarly find out del 2a del y2. Just keep differentiating with respect to y, keeping x and z constant. Del 2a del x2, just keep differentiating with respect to x, keeping y and z constant. Okay. So in that manner, you can get the higher derivatives. You can also get combined higher derivatives, which means here you found out del A del x. Now del A del x, suppose you are asked to differentiate with respect to y. So what will you get? Del 2a del y del x. So you found out del A del x. Now you differentiate this with respect to y, keeping x constant. You've got del A del y. You can now differentiate this with respect to x, keeping y constant. So once you find out the partial derivative with respect to a particular variable, it doesn't mean that you have to keep deriving with respect to that variable only. You can use the same function to differentiate with respect to a different variable of which the vector is a function again. Okay. So in this manner, you can get higher derivatives. Also, if the vector has continuous partial derivatives of second order, then normally you get del 2a del x del y equal to del 2a del y del x. That is the order will not matter. Okay. Also, if a vector A is written as a1 I cap plus a2 j cap plus a3 k cap, where of course a1, a2, a3 are not constants, then we may write dA equal to dA1 I cap plus dA2 j cap plus dA3 k cap. Again, if a vector A is a function of x, y, z, then we can write dA equal to del A del x dx plus del A del y dy plus del A del z dz. Okay. So these are certain rules that you must remember, certain formulae, and we will be using these formulae later on when we do other forms of vector differentiation, the operators, and later on integration. Okay. Now that we know what vector differentiation is, and also we have got some idea about partial derivation of vectors or scalars for that matter, we will now talk about the vector differential operator. Okay. Now this is a very, very important thing that you're learning, and you will need this operator. You will need to use this operator at several other topics of physics also. Okay. So for the different fields, for example, you have to do a bit of electrostatics later on. You have to do a bit of electromagnetism, magnetostatics, physical optics, a bit of quantum mechanics. So in all those topics, you will need to know the partial, this vector differential operator. So which is why you are learning about it now, so that when you go to the higher semesters, you don't need to, learn it afresh for each topic where you apply this. So this is like almost like a building a sort of building block for the later subjects that you are going to study. Just like you had when you started mathematics, you had learned addition and subtraction, and then multiplication and division. Then when you started calculus, you first learned limits, and then you learned differentiation, and then you went on to integration. And now you are applying all those mathematical tools in different areas. Okay, so even for the people who are studying mathematics honors, I'm sure you have noticed that you are basically applying whatever mathematical tools you have learned so long in different other areas. Okay, so similarly, you will learn this vector differential operator and you will apply it in the other area. So you need to understand what the vector differential operator is very well. All right. So in the Cartesian coordinate system specifically, the vector differential operator is defined like this. Okay, so this is the symbol for the operator. It's an inverted capital delta, and it is written like this. I have not, please note that I have not written equal to. I have given an equivalent sign because this is an operator. Unless it is operating on some function, you cannot write equal to. So it is the representation of this operator. Okay, so the partial differential operator, the vector differential operator, is represented as del del x I cap plus del del y j cap plus del del z k cap in the Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, this symbol has different names. It is the Greek letter nabla. The name of this Greek, it is a Greek letter, as you can see, and the name of this Greek letter is nabla. But in the language of mathematics, we call it the grad operator or the del operator. Okay, and don't forget to give the vector sign on it. If you don't give the vector sign on it, then it doesn't make any sense. If you don't give the vector sign, then it is just a ordinary capital Greek letter nabla. The moment you give the vector sign on it, then it will mean the vector differential operator, grad operator or del operator, which is represented in this fashion. Okay, so let's see what it does. There are three primary operations that are possible by this del operator. What are they? Grad phi or del phi, where phi is a scalar. So when the del operator acts on a scalar function, we get a vector. So the del operator acting on a scalar function phi results in a vector, and this operation is called the gradient. Okay, so I'm only introducing, I'm not, I'll go into details later on. So what is the gradient? What do you mean by taking the gradient of a scalar? It means you operate the del or the grad operator on a scalar function, and by operating that you get a vector. So from a scalar you get a vector, and this action is called the gradient. Next, grad operator dotted with dot product with a vector A. Okay, so obviously this vector is not a constant because you are going to operate a differential operator on it. So if it is a constant, then you are going to get 0. So when the del operator, when the grad operator operates on a vector A, the result is a scalar. Okay, and this is called the divergence. So when the vector operator, the vector differential operator, acts on a vector
मैम आपका साउंड नहीं आ रहा।
Because one of your classmates muted my microphone. That is why you couldn't hear me. I mean, if this goes on, I will have to report to the principal that I cannot take the physics general class because something or the other keeps on happening in the 1 hour class time. If you want that, then you can continue like this. And if you really want to do the class, then please don't do this. What else can I say? You are grown-up children. So up to which point did you hear me?
Ma'am, divergence.
Okay. So divergence. And finally, when the grad operator acts on a vector, but now you take the cross product, okay? So del operating on a vector resulting in a vector. When you take the cross product, you all know that you get a vector. So that is called the curl. So you have been introduced to a vector differential operator, which in the Cartesian coordinate system looks like this. Okay. And you have now learned that it can operate in 3 ways. First, it can operate on a scalar, converting it to a vector, and this operation is called taking the gradient of the scalar. Next, it operates on a vector, but the result is a scalar because you are taking the dot product. The del operator is a vector operator and A is a vector, of course. So when you take the dot product, you get a scalar, and this means this is called taking the divergence of the vector. And last, you take the del operator and operate it again on a vector, but now you take the cross product, and we know the cross product of two vectors is a vector. So now you get a vector. So del operator operating on a scalar results in a vector. Del operator can act in 2 ways on a vector. When you take its dot product with a vector, you get a scalar. When you take its cross product with a vector, you get a vector. And the 3 operations are respectively called taking the gradient of a scalar, the divergence of a vector, and the curl of a vector. Okay. So per se now you know the gradient, divergence, and curl. You know the formula of the dot product, you know the formula of the cross product, and you know the expression of the del operator or the grad operator. So if you are given a scalar, you can quickly take the partial derivatives and write down its gradient. If you are given a vector and asked to take the divergence, you can quickly write down the del operator, take its dot product with A and say this is the divergence. If you are given a vector and asked to take its curl, you can quickly write down the del operator, take its cross product with the vector A and find the result and say this is the curl. Okay, so mathematically you know how these operations are done. However, I will discuss each of these, the gradient, the divergence, and the curl one by one, because apart from the mathematics, you also need to know a little bit about what it physically means when a vector differential operator converts a scalar into a vector. What it means when a vector differential operator converts a vector into a scalar. What it means when a vector operator changes a vector to another vector. Okay. So what are the physical meanings of the operations gradient, divergence, and curl? That I will discuss in a bit detail one by one after this. All right. Let us digress a little bit and briefly discuss something about fields. Okay. Now what are fields? So long whenever you have taken the dot product or the cross product, or you have added two vectors or subtracted one vector from another, I'll wait till the microphone is muted. Someone's microphone is on, and I'll wait till the microphone gets muted. Okay. So now often we encounter quantities which have different values at different points in space. Okay. What I mean is, when you are considering, now you can say, why are we suddenly discussing fields? We were discussing vectors and we were doing the vector differential operator, etc. So why have we suddenly switched to a discussion on fields? We are doing this because when we are doing the differentiation of a vector, or when we are, what is this background noise? So when we are talking about a vector that can be differentiated, then we are obviously talking about something which is not a constant. So if I write a vector like 2i cap plus 3j cap plus 6k cap, it means it is a constant. It has a distinct direction, a fixed direction and a fixed magnitude, and there is no sense in saying that we are taking its gradient or divergence or curl, because all of them involve differentiation, and we cannot differentiate a constant vector. Okay. So basically, when we are talking about differentiating a vector, we are not talking about a constant vector. What we are talking about are fields, which is why I want you to understand a little bit about what fields are. Okay. So when we talk about a physical quantity where not only the magnitude but also the space at which you are measuring the magnitude matters, that is a quantity which we call a field. Okay. So for example, temperature. So suppose for example, you have taken, whoever has his microphone on, will you please mute your microphone? So suppose you have taken a metal rod and you have inserted it into a furnace, all right, in order to heat it up. Now if you start measuring, suppose the heating has started, and now if you take a thermometer and measure the temperature,
Ma'am, somebody muted you again, ma'am.
this is so disturbing and this is so disappointing. How can I take a class like this? And in my last 9 or 10 months experience, this is the first time this is happening. I have taken your class also. This is the third class I'm taking, I think. This did not happen before. How is it possible to take a class with so much disturbance? As it is, we are not in the classroom. That itself is sort of a minus point. And how am I supposed to upload this recording onto the YouTube channel, you tell me? With me scolding you during half the class. How am I supposed to upload this on the YouTube channel? Seriously. So suppose we are talking about the temperature. Even if you are simply, suppose on a hot summer day, you are sitting in a room which has the AC on, and it's a very crowded room, say, and the it's a window AC only on one side of the room. So people who are sitting near the AC will feel cooler, whereas people who are sitting far away from the AC will not feel the effect of the cooling effect of the AC at all. So you know what I'm trying to say is the temperature at different points in a room will be different in general. Okay. Similarly, if you talk about electric field, you know the formula of the electric field due to a point charge, and it depends on distance. It goes as 1 by r square. So if you are close to the charge, you have a particular value of the electric field. If you go away from the charge, the value of the electric field is different. And so the value of the electric field depends on the position in space at which you are measuring the magnitude. Gravitational force. You know it's totally different, dependent on the distance from the surface of the, or rather the center of the earth. Okay. The further you move away from the center of the earth, the weaker is the gravitational force. If you're not talking about gravity, if you're just talking about the general gravitational force between two objects, you know it depends on 1 by r square. So the further two objects are from each other, the weaker is the gravitational force between them. So in this manner, there are velocity of flow of a liquid. When a liquid flows, all of you have done a little bit of viscosity in your +2. So when a liquid flows through a particular tube, we know that the layers that are attached to the wall of the tube, they move with zero velocity, whereas the velocity of the particles which are in the middle of the tube is highest. So there is a change, there is a variation in the value of the velocity at different positions within the tube through which the liquid is flowing. Okay, so all these things where the particular region of space of interest for the given problem, and at every point of this region, some physical quantity has a value, that is what is meant by a field. Okay, so the term field is used to mean both the region and the value of the physical quantity in the region. So when the physical quantity is a scalar, we call it a scalar field. For example, temperature. When the physical quantity is a vector, we call it a vector field. For example, magnetic field or electric field. Okay, so when we are talking about vectors that we will be differentiating or taking the gradient, or taking the divergence or the curl, or when we have taken the gradient of a scalar, what we mean by the quantity are basically fields. So from now on, just keep in mind that we will be dealing with not constant scalars or vectors, but scalar fields or vector fields. And when we are taking gradient, divergence or curl of the scalar or vector quantity, we are taking the gradient of a scalar field. We will soon see how we take the gradient of a scalar field, or divergence of a vector field, or divergence of or curl of a vector field. Okay, so just to make this point clear, I wanted you to understand that what the term field means, because I will use the term field several times from the next topics that we are going to do. So I just wanted this I dedicated this slide to a short discussion on fields because of this. Okay. This. So now we will start our discussion on gradient. I'll just introduce what gradient is and end today's class, because after that it will require a lot of time to touch all the aspects of gradient and do the sums. So for that we will require an entire class, which I'll do in my next class. So what is a gradient? Suppose phi is a scalar field which is a function of x, y and z, and this field is defined at each point x, y, z in a certain region of space. So you may be talking about the gravitational potential, which is a scalar. You may be talking about the temperature, which is a scalar. Okay. This function is also differentiable at each point in a certain region of space, and then the gradient of the function phi, which is also called grad phi, is defined like this. Okay, so remember in the expression of the grad operator, where we had written the equivalent sign. Now since I have the grad operating on the scalar phi, I put equal to, and del x I cap plus del y j cap plus del z k cap is operating on the function phi. So we have del grad phi is equal to del phi del x I cap plus del phi del y j cap plus del phi del z k cap. Okay. So obviously grad phi is a vector field. So basically the grad operator converts the scalar field to a vector field. We started with a scalar field, we operated the grad operator, and you can see this clearly is a vector with the directions I cap, j cap, k cap, and the components are del phi del x, del phi del y and del phi del z. So given the function phi, you can find out the components. For example, suppose the scalar phi is a function like this, x square, y squared, z squared. Any function. It might represent some sort of a field, just imagine. Okay. So can you find out the gradient of this function and tell me what the result is? It's very easy. Can you try out? Will you give it a try? Please.
Ma'am, 2x y square z square I cap plus x square 2y z square j cap plus x square y square 2z k cap.
Exactly. 2x. So see, you didn't have to even write down. So grad phi is 2x y square z square I cap plus 2x square y z square j cap plus 2x square y square z k cap. Okay. So you started with a scalar field, you obtained a vector field. So ideally now you know how to take the gradient of a scalar. Right. You know the mathematical formula. So given any phi, you can quickly take its gradient by using this formula. So I'll end my class today at this point, and in my next class I will start with this and discuss what this physically means, what it means when the grad operator is converting the scalar field into a vector field. How are we getting a vector starting from the scalar? That will tell us what the physical significance of the gradient is. Okay, and you will see why it is so important, and we'll also see how it is important in our daily lives, how taking the gradient of a scalar, the result, how it is also important in several aspects of our daily lives, which we have not thought probably in this manner before understanding what a gradient is. Okay, and then we'll do some sums on gradient, and then we'll move on to the divergence and curl if time permits. Okay, so it's already past 8, so I'll end my class today. What I'll do is okay, so